Hi, welcome to Unscripted Soul. I'm Flo. I'm here with my co-host Rebecca. We're two spiritual coaches that believe the most profound conversations happen when we drop the script and speak from our soul. Every week we go live about spiritual awakening, living as conscious creators, and becoming more of our true selves. Our hope is that our journey will help you navigate your journey. We're so happy that you're here. Let's dive in.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of the work that I do is around identity. Because when I was first on this journey of changing my life, because that's where it started, I looked around and I was like, I'm really not happy. I don't like the job I'm in. I don't like how much money I'm making. The relationships I have are crap. Like my life just sucked. And I was trying all kinds of different things. I was always like reading self-help books. I was obsessed with them. In fact, one day my daughter came down and I was reading and she joked around and she goes, Mom, you have all these self-help books, but do they do any good? And then she like walked away, just being a teenage girl. And it sunk in and I was like, yeah, I am reading all these books and are they doing me any good? Because I still feel stuck. And so it wasn't until I started realizing about my identity and my self-image. And there was a book that I read. My dad actually had this book and he kind of kept it secret and he like would talk to his friends about it and there was something really cool about it and mysterious, I guess. When he passed away, I never had a really strong relationship with him and I didn't really care much about his things, but I said, "Hey, I'll take that book, Psycho-Cybernetics." And so I had it, I kind of read it, but then years later, I picked it up again, and it talks all about the self-image and how the way that we see ourselves is a direct, like, reflection. Our outer world is a reflection of how we see ourselves. And so our identity is basically a collection of beliefs, of stories, assumptions that we hold about ourselves. And it's like, the way we see ourselves, like the choices that we make, they all have to do with how we see ourselves. So, for instance, I saw myself as someone who was shy right away. Like I was a shy kid. And so the more I believed that I was shy, then the more I found evidence in my reality that I was shy. And so once I started to discover this, I started asking myself, okay, who do I have to become to have the things that I want? And so that was like the first shift for me, was just like asking myself that question.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is so profound, what you just talked about. And it is so true that what is going inside of you is directly mirrored back to you. So if you're not feeling good about yourself, then the whole world is not going to feel good about you. So I have a story about this too. When I first moved here to the Deep South, I lived in I was raised in Hawaii for my childhood. And then I lived in California for about 20 years. I raised my son in California. And then we moved to the Deep South about 3 years ago. And I didn't realize this, but I was in a denial about living here. And I wasn't really accepting of the South. I wasn't accepting of the people. I wasn't accepting of the places. I had thought, I want to go back to Hawaii. Or I want to go back to California because that's what I'm used to. And I'm not used to this. It was so extremely different because I held that belief and I've held that inside of me. Everywhere I went, it was mirrored back to me. People would look at me weird. They would stare at me. And I didn't know why. I just thought, there's no Asian people here. So people keep staring at me because there's no Asian people here. Little did I know, because that happened to me for almost 2 years where people were just staring at me so much every time I left the door. And I felt like an alien, because they would literally walk towards me, stare, walk past me, turn around and keep staring. And I'm thinking, these people have never seen Asian people. Do they not watch TV? I mean, that was my mindset that I'm Asian, I'm different, and they're staring at me. Well, come to find out, that was not the case at all, because this is when I was doing deep spiritual work and learning about frequency and energy and our beliefs and our thoughts. I just decided one day, you know what? I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to decide that I actually belong here too, and this is my home. And I went out, and my whole reality changed completely. Nobody ever stared at me again. Everybody smiled, they were welcoming. They're the most warm people here. And for 2 years, I thought that everybody thought I was an alien and that I didn't belong. But it was me. It was me that didn't made myself not belong. Um, it was they were feeling what I was feeling. It was the energy that they could feel off of me because so many things are unseen. There's a scientist that talks about how we can only see 1% of what's actually going on. So 99% of what is going on, we can't see. So people can feel your energy, even if you don't speak it. It's like a telepathy or something. They can feel your energy and they can feel that I felt I didn't belong and that you're going to look at me weird because I'm an alien or I'm Asian and I don't belong here. And that's exactly what happened. That was mirrored back to me. But as soon as I decided, the moment I decided that I belong here and I'm going to go out and I am a Southern person too. And that moment is when everything changed. Not one person ever looked at me weird again, and I'm just one of them, which is mind blowing. Like, that's how strong that was. It was mind blowing to me that the evidence of what's inside of you is mirrored back to you.
Yeah, wow. What a great example. Like, that is like the perfect example. You started off with the belief that I don't belong here, and your reality responded. And it said, okay, well, then we'll make people look at you like you're an alien. But then once you change that to, hey, I'm a Southerner too, I belong here, your reality changed. It's so amazing how it
And it was like
works.
that instant that I decided that day forward, it was completely different. I was never treated like that again. And that was my reality when I first moved here for 2 years. I mean, unbelievable that I could feel like that. And in an instant, it could change. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Wow. That's so crazy. And it's interesting because some beliefs are like that. You can instantly decide, because I believe that all beliefs are choices. We've made a decision somewhere down the road that we believe this is true about ourselves. So sometimes they're easy. You can just decide you're going to think differently. But a lot of our beliefs, they came from when we were really young, so
Oh, yeah.
unconsciously during childhood. And so these are the beliefs that are really hard to change
Oh,
and to
yeah,
even recognize.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it like, here's an example that I use. So imagine there's a 3-year-old child, and this child has a box of crayons, and they are having so much fun. And they're coloring this beautiful picture, and they're using all different colors, and they're expressing themselves, and they're being creative. And they are so proud of what they did, and they run to get their parent, and they're like, look what I did. And their parent responds, no, no, because the child colored on the wall or the
Mhm.
furniture. So in that moment, that
Mhm.
child makes an assumption about its reality. And that child might say in that moment, expressing myself and being creative is bad. That will get me in trouble. And so then you fast forward into their adult life, and what that can look like is the belief of, I'm just not creative. And so it's like, no, you are creative. You just shut that down when you were little. And so
Yes.
those are the times when we're stuck and we're like, oh, I want to express myself, but I'm not creative. So it's so interesting. They're not so like right there on the surface. Sometimes we have to go deep to uncover
Yeah.
them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that analogy. Also, what it brought up for me is a little deeper. So I don't know how you feel about this, but is it that we were blocked from that creativity or that part of ourselves because we were supposed to explore that more? Like, so say, okay, how can I explain this well? Um, okay, so when you are living life and life is easy and comfortable, you are never going to ever look at anything. You're never going to try to expand. You're never going to be pressured into like, why is this happening? And look at it and try to be better because life is easy and it's comfortable. Why would you have to? Why would you have to even like think about anything discomfort, any kind of discomfort? So are we put into that discomfort because that's the way that we were supposed to go? Does that make sense what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Oh my gosh, yes, Flo. I'm so glad you brought that up because that is such an interesting perspective. Because what if we were put here and we specifically picked out these instances? So, like, for instance, our parents who yelled at us or told us no, or who didn't listen, who abandoned us, who abused us, even, perhaps they were just doing their part. So that way we have something that we can learn from, that we can grow from. So if I hadn't grown up the way that I did, with all of the resistance, all of the blocks, and all of the heartache, all of the pain and suffering, I'm not going to lie, my childhood sucked. But if
Hmm.
I hadn't been through that, I wouldn't have anything to explore. I wouldn't have anything to teach me how to grow and
Exactly.
evolve my consciousness. So I'm grateful for everything that happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with me. My childhood was so hard, but it forced me to figure out what it was and why, to look at it. And there's a thing in spiritual wisdom, they say that the chosen ones were given this hard road. Not that somebody else isn't chosen if their life is easy, but I feel like we all have been given adversities. We've all been given problems to figure out, struggles, because we're meant to, just like a diamond, it has to be under pressure in order to become the diamond. The silver has to go into fire and be forged in fire. If it's not, it won't, the patina won't come off. It won't turn into what it's supposed to. It has to be refined. And so without that pressure, without that contrast of like how hard it was, we can't be refined because we're just given an easy life. We're spoiled. There's nothing to figure out. There's, you know, life is easy. I use the video
Mhm.
game analogy a lot because I mean, how, if you knew you couldn't lose in a video game, how long before you were bored? You have to have the challenges so that you can keep going up every level in a video game. You have to be challenged and win and say, yes, I did it. If you don't have any of those, you're not going to grow. You're not going to be pressured to refine. Um, so I think we're getting away from our original topic, which is identity, but I love where this is
Yeah.
going too, because it is important to understand that we're not we're not just given these to be abused, to suffer. You know, suffering is part of the
Mhm.
process, you know, and if it
Yeah.
can invoke a greater learning, a deeper self, then it's actually healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're saying. And the interesting thing is so yes, like the hard life, it creates opportunity for growth and for expansion, but only, well, maybe not only, but it does help when you recognize it. Because when
Yes,
you understand this, you're not beating your fists up against the wall. You're not feeling that frustration, and therefore your energy, your frequency is at such a low, depressive state. When you're aware of what's happening and you're like, oh, well, this is happening for me, it's all for my greater good, then it just changes the way you see life. So it's like you have to have that awareness of what's happening, behind the scenes, or like if you were to zoom out, it's like we don't really know what's going on, but we're like down here on Earth and we can only see, and like you said, we can only perceive a small fraction of reality. So,
yeah,
yes, but as far as identity goes, what I like to think is who we truly are at our core, our true identity is that identity that came in, that perfect, pure, whole soul that came into experience. So then we've put all these labels on ourselves, even our name, our religion, our nationality, like all of these things, they're all labels. Like who we are
right.
truly is just a beautiful divine spirit,
Yeah,
right? So it's about understanding who we truly are, and that our identity and how we see ourselves really does shape our life. So if we see ourselves as infinite, as divine, then what is our life going to look like, right?
yeah, yeah. When I first got into spirituality and the teachers were describing it just as you did, how we're pure and how we're all one, and that we came here as beautiful and whole and gifted. It was such a enlightening idea because I had so many thoughts of like, what's wrong with me? I'm not, I have so many issues. I have to fix this before I can even be okay. There was so much of that that's put on us. Getting back to the idea of like, hey, there's nothing wrong with us. We're okay, just the way we are. It's such a, it lets down so many of the hard ideas that we have. It just takes you back to what's real.
Mm. Yes, I love that because we are okay. We're all okay. And we're here just enjoying this journey. And sometimes it's crazy. Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes it is so painful. But I want to experience it all, And of course, I don't like the painful parts. But if there weren't the painful parts, how could really appreciate the joyful parts?
Exactly. Without contrast, you would never know. Just like, how would you know warm without cold? How would you feel full without ever being hungry? How would you see light without dark? You know, there has to be a contrast. Without that contrast, life has absolutely no meaning. It would just be playing a video game that you can never lose.